Welcome to the Quarter Life Lessons Podcast,
a show on the many relatable lessons learned to and through the journey of adulthood. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm CharLea. Let's get started. Stephanie, can you recall a favorite or special birthday you've had?
Oh man, I threw myself a special 28th birthday because it was my golden birthday when I turned 28 10 years ago. And I definitely have been a part of some milestone birthdays, whether it's destination birthday trips or things like that. Just yesterday celebrated a home birthday party for my dad who turned 65.
Oh, happy birthday to him.
Yeah, that was great. And yeah, so birthdays, I know a lot of people bring a lot of emotions or maybe expectations to birthdays, but yeah, I've had experience with having good ones of my own and helping folks with theirs.
Awesome. I love to hear that. And you said helping folks with theirs. In your experience, what do you usually do for a birthday?
Well, a typical birthday, like a friend or loved one, it's probably going out to dinner, doing something intentionally fun that they enjoy, whether that's a movie or nail salon or some sort of activity. Probably getting them a card and just making sure that they feel valued and that their participation and their existence in my life is important to me and valuable to me and that I want to celebrate with them. I think it would be difficult to have a birthday if you didn't have folks who were going to show up and tell you your value and enjoy some experience with you on a birthday. I think that would be hard.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's wild how much birthdays vary from person to person.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't make that connection until probably within the last 5 years, so.
Yeah, my husband's family is very it's your birthday, happy birthday, but they don't necessarily do anything more than maybe going out to dinner. And in my family, we did lots of things growing up that were special parties, special fun. And then as a young adult, all my friends, we'd do things together, weekend special trips. And then it gets even bigger on milestone birthdays.
Yes.
So like I was saying, destination trips. We've been to New Orleans. We've been to Austin. Different things have happened where you're just really going over the top to celebrate because it's a milestone. But then there's also birthdays where maybe somebody's sick and they're in the hospital or some work commitment has you out of town or something like that. So I've definitely seen a perspective where some folks maybe don't want to celebrate because maybe they're not happy about their age or they just don't feel it's necessary. Maybe something else is more important to them. So yeah, it is different.
Would you say you feel like birthdays can lose value over time?
Yeah, I think about my parents who are in their 60s, both turned 65 this year. We did special things, not a trip or anything, but special things for them. But I don't know that we did a huge amount for 64. Certainly showing up, taking some time to appreciate and celebrate and just mark that person's birthday with distinction or celebration. But yeah, I would imagine that over time, it probably does feel like just another birthday. At 38 years old, I don't feel that yet for myself. But I intentionally like to celebrate that time. So it just depends on the person, maybe.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that it hasn't fizzled out for you quite yet. I feel like, I don't know, birthdays were just so huge when I was a kid. So it really seems like there is a large shift once you become an adult, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that when I first met my husband and he was like, wait, you threw yourself a party, everyone came, and then your actual birthday was the next day and you still wanted people to go to dinner with you and hang out with you for the day. He had a bit of a hard time processing you're 28 years old, you have 3 birthdays. What's your deal? And, I think it just has to do with maybe what you bring to it, or maybe the way that if you had really great big parties as a kid and then as an adult you've like taken it easy, or maybe you didn't have much as a kid and you really want birthdays to be significant as an adult. I think people bring a lot of different emotion to it. So obviously we talked about how exciting birthdays can be. What is something that you've grown to understand about birthdays, CharLea?
Yeah, like I said, in the last 5-ish years, I've been learning that birthdays are not necessarily always happy for people. From my personal experience, the best way I can describe birthdays in general is bittersweet. And that would just be the best wording for majority. Even honestly, my birthday since high school, sometimes it was a reflection of how things had not changed. Again, me trying to be as productive as possible and get to those goals as quickly as possible. It was just kind of a reflection of letting myself down, I feel like, at some points. But on the other hand, it was a huge accomplishment to have made it another year. Like, I definitely still always felt there was some amount of celebration that needed to happen, but it did have that bitter aftertaste. And I want to try my best to make the year I turned 24 to be the last year that I was surprised and almost shocked at having another birthday. I've been working to change my perspective on how I celebrate. And not even how I celebrate in general, but specifically how I celebrate myself. I want to celebrate myself all year in, smaller facets, but specifically on my birthday, I celebrate almost the whole month of April. And I did that last year, and I felt like it was very healing to me. And I just want to put less energy on what other people want out of my birthday, and I want to enjoy more of what I want without compromising.
That makes sense. You touched on something important, and that is the kind of self-awareness of, I'm turning another year older. What have I done? What's different? Am I growing the way I want to be growing? What's happened to me this year? And it's funny, but for some reason, I remember the first year that I did that inventory, and I was 17.
Yeah.
And it was the first year because even my really good friend Colleen would say, she would tell me, sometimes you're sad around your birthday, especially leading up to it. And it's just like a time of like, did I hit the mark? Yeah. We were talking about before about, having that healthy inventory and a benchmark, but sometimes you can take it to a really rough place internally. And maybe there are factors around you that are contributing to that, but try not to, or obviously something to learn from is have a healthy amount of self-awareness and don't let it dive so far into self-sabotage or self-criticism to where it's really having a negative impact on your present. And then surround yourself with people, I think that quality friendships and relationships who want to celebrate you too, even if it is a month long. Yeah. But yeah, I've totally had those feelings since maybe not every year, but 17, 23, some of the years I made the biggest moves in my life, whether it was graduating high school, moving out on my own after college. Some of these birthdays, I can think back to that mental battle around, am I headed in the right direction? And I don't know why birthdays and that go hand in hand, because we have New Year's and we have, actual graduations are like usually in May or June. So like, why or is it around your birthday? But yeah, I totally see that introspection side. Yeah. But then, also the external side of celebrating is you can celebrate by yourself. Yes. And you can plan for that, but you can also celebrate and let people know, I'm interested in being around folks who want to celebrate this accomplishment with me, not bring me down or take away from the experience that I'm trying to have around this special time in my life.
Yeah. When that introspection comes, I do feel like we should give ourselves grace, because a lot of times it is easier to focus on the negative.
Oh, yeah.
So to pick yourself up and make some plans and follow through with those plans, that takes a lot of effort, and we'll definitely get into that. But it's a great point, and it really is our responsibility to make that shift if so far things have been a little more negative around the birthday.
Mm-hmm. So, knowing that, CharLea, what kinds of changes have you implemented?
So I think not only around doing more for myself, but again, I've been that friend to throw others parties, like you had mentioned, and most people don't do that, at least not to the extent I feel like I was going out on a limb. So my overall lesson is that before I host a celebration or a birthday for anyone else, I need to know the why behind it. I used to feel like when I was hosting these parties that I was putting a lot of effort into them because I would want the same to be done for me. And not necessarily everybody deserves that extent of energy solely because it's not likely to be reciprocated. And if people just get to show up all the time, they don't understand the effort that is put into the whole thing.
Yeah, that's borderline touching on kind of some boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And it's really easy and logical to think, well, like, if I give you an apple today, you're going to give me an apple tomorrow, like, just to make it basic. But when you have complex relationships with lots of people and there aren't healthy boundaries and, like you said, reciprocal expectation isn't being met, it is healthy to take an inventory of the energy imbalance and then say, this is the way I plan to show up for you. And if it's a really good friend and you can have that difficult conversation, this is how I would like you to show up for me.
Right.
But yeah, that comes down to boundaries. And you're totally right. If it's an offset or you're giving more than you're receiving and you can feel that emotionally, it's probably time to make a change.
Right.
In your experience, what all goes into planning a party or a birthday celebration?
Yeah, it's a lot, to say the least. Just to list a few things, you have to have a location for this event, invitations, which means you have to talk to everybody or give some sort of information of when and where and what time and all of that. Most of my parties, I do food, some sort of cake, balloons and decorations, a game or an activity. And if there's an element of surprise, that takes a lot of coordination. And all this stuff is also not cheap. So there's also factoring the cost of this. And Thrivers, if you know someone who's ever done anything like that for you, whether you were a kid or it was any sort of celebration similar, if it's possible, and even if you already did so, I encourage you to take the time to tell them thank you, because it is so rare to have that amount of energy that is being exerted to show you a good time and just to make you feel important for no other reason other than you're important.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thinking about how much energy to put out, and instead of using that to put up a boundary, which you got to have healthy boundaries, use it to remember people who have invested in you in that way and go tell them thank you. Like, what a cool call to action. It sounds like you've hosted several events. Overall, what are the lessons you've learned about hosting and celebrating others?
Overall, I'd have to say, like we kind of hinted on earlier, there's only a few people who will ever celebrate you in that caliber. And in that same breath, there's only a few people who will ever be able to pour into you in the same way that you can do that for them. I also had to learn that it's not a requirement to go all out for other people. I was blessed with having larger birthdays most of my life, so I thought that was the norm. But it doesn't have to be the norm. I do feel like I still kind of have an obligation for people who have never experienced that, just because I love it so much. But at the same time, it's not a have to, so you don't have to feel like you have to give people that amount of energy, because it is a lot. I also have learned if you do go all out for someone, it's not a guarantee that they will change how they treat you, and it's not a guarantee that it will change how you are treated on your birthday. Young CharLea did not get that. So again, I was doing a lot of parties and celebrations and events, and I mean, some of those people I don't even talk to anymore, and it's unfortunate, but it is a lesson that you have to learn. On that same breath, again, going back to knowing why you're doing it, I don't give only to receive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it is, of course, important if you feel like giving to that person, do so. But again, just managing your expectations so that you're not disappointed, but also being open if something does come out of that where they do feel like they want to show you an equal amount of appreciation or show you appreciation in a different way, may not even be a birthday, that's also a great thing. Stephanie, you had hinted on this earlier. If you're going to celebrate someone, make sure you're doing something that they will actually enjoy.
Right.
I feel like two things will happen if that's not done. I think both parties will be disappointed. The host, whoever is hosting, will be disappointed probably with the level of reaction and gratitude that they get from the person. And previously, when I have been gifted something or celebrated in a way that I don't like or I would have done differently, I was grateful for sure. Definitely want to get that out there. I do have gratitude for when things are done for me, but it made me feel like people didn't really know anything about me.
Right.
Or they didn't care to find out, and they don't see the changes that has occurred in me. And because it takes so much work to make those changes, I still feel disappointed in a way, even though the gratitude is there for sure, but it can still be a little bit of a letdown if you're not taking into consideration what the person would want.
Yeah, like if they've made a life change, let's say from drinking and then trying to be more sober, and you plan them a party at a bar, they may be grateful to bring their friends together, but what a difficult situation to put somebody. And that's an extreme one. I hope that people aren't out there doing that, but yeah, you really have to think about knowing the person. I know we're talking about birthdays here, but this same exact thinking process happens around graduation parties, bridal showers, bridal parties, and as thrivers are aging and coming into adulthood, I hope that these amazing things are happening in your life and in your friends and family's lives, that you are thinking about baby showers or housewarmings. I mean, a lot of those things have happened over the last 20 years or so in my life, and you really do want to think about the people that you have and why we're putting these celebrations together, because at the end of the day, no matter what it is, it's thrown because you want to show that person love.
Right.
You want to show that person that their life is important and that they're valuable, and show them love. I love what you said earlier about in situations where you've planned this thing for someone, showered them with love, sometimes there's a subconscious understanding that when it's your turn, they're going to be there.
Right.
And I would just say again, be aware that being in the present, showering someone with the right amount of love that doesn't sabotage your own goals financially or your own plans for your own energy or somehow take away from you in a way that it might build resentment or some unhealthy expectation, that's going to come up a lot.
Right.
That probably comes up a lot even when you're talking about buying lunch for a friend who never has their money or whatever it is. I think these habits may be associated with birthday parties here in this conversation and other things we've talked about, but the behavior of not over giving with this understanding of getting it back, or like we were talking about, being present and saying, this person's valuable to me, I'm going to show them they're valuable in these ways, period, not, and then they'll show up for me later.
Exactly.
Subconsciously, because I just don't think that it works out that way all the time. We never know what's going to happen in that person's life or our own life. Yes, we want to have great friendships. And if you're expecting something, if my friend was expecting something on their birthday or at their graduation party, I would just really want my friend to say to me, hey, would you be willing to throw a party for my graduation? Or would you be willing to throw a birthday party for me? And then that person can maybe know what they're getting themselves into. So maybe it's about communication too.
Yeah, I definitely think that's another large lesson to have to learn, that yes, like birthdays just come up, like things just come up and you do things and you go ahead and make the plans and you're not necessarily thinking, unless your birthday is like around the corner, about what that would look like for you later, which is good. You know, I feel like we mostly come from a giving place, but that communication, I feel like, goes a long way. Even though it may not be the easiest of conversations, they are definitely necessary conversations to have.
Yeah, Thrivers, I think the whole point of this podcast is going to be that hard conversations are necessary and that they're good, and be prepared to have them as an adult.
Talking about celebrations and birthdays really leads us into the conversation on gift giving. Next time on the Quarter Life Lessons podcast, be sure to tune in to hear the various perspectives we have on giving and receiving gifts. As always, the conversation does not end here. We want to know your thoughts on these topics. Join us on Instagram at Quarter Life Lessons Pod to share your perspective and continue the conversations to thrive. Thank you for tuning in to the Quarter Life Lessons podcast. Find our new episodes bi-weekly on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or our Buzzsprout website.